No matter who you are, like everybody is searching for peace. And what is peace? Peace is where we have confidence and where we have freedom. So, yes, why would we use breath work? Why would we do any of this stuff that's not just exercise and movement? It's because the world we live in is different than our great great grandparents. The world we live in requires more acute approaches that'll actually take away our stress and give us that peace.
From the Weston A. Price Foundation, welcome to the Wise Traditions podcast for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. We are your source for scientific knowledge and traditional wisdom to help you achieve optimal health.
Hey, Hilda here. We really need to work to figure out how to reduce our stress right now. Can we learn to control our breathing to better manage our stress, our current situation, our response to challenges? And what benefits might we find? Will stress relief be one of them? This is episode 240, and our guest today is Josh Trent. Josh is the founder of Wellness Force Media. He has spent the past 17 years as a researcher, trainer, and facilitator discovering the physical and emotional intelligence for humans to thrive in our modern world. Josh holds a CES certification from the National Academy of Sports Medicine. And today we discuss breathwork, its many benefits including lowering our blood pressure, reducing acute anxiety, how it can help us reprogram the default mode network of our brains that is constantly on the lookout for threat and danger. Breathwork turns down the volume on the perceived threats and helps us manage stress. Josh reveals a variety of breathwork techniques on our show today. He also guides us through some breathwork in the middle of the interview as well. Before we get started, 2 quick reminders. At the end of each episode, we are going to read your letters. Every Wise Traditions journal has letters to the editor with heartwarming stories, testimonials, and sometimes challenging perspectives. So we're going to pick one a week to highlight on the show. So stick around to the very end of the episode and you'll hear some positivity to encourage you on your own health journey. Also, I want to let you know that we have a link on our homepage to a variety of coronavirus resources, podcasts, videos, and blogs to help support your health and to keep you informed. And a quick thank you to one of our most faithful sponsors, Ancestral Supplements. Support your immune system with wholesome nose-to-tail nutrient-dense foods. Ancestral Supplements' lung, thymus, and colostrum will provide your body with the vitamins and minerals it needs to stay healthy and fight off viruses. A healthy thymus builds a robust immune system. Beef lung supports the respiratory system and lung cells. Colostrum supports optimal gut and immune system function. I love these real food supplements, and I take them regularly. So visit ancestralsupplements.com to try them out. Lung, thymus, and colostrum. Ancestral Supplements, putting back in what the modern world has left out. This is Holistic Hilda, and you're listening to Wise Traditions. Welcome to Wise Traditions, Josh.
Hey, thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So I saw a health trends list recently, and it said meditation is out and breathwork is in. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that they've always both been in and they'll never both be out, because I just think the reason we're seeing a resurgence is because people are having the hardest time sitting still they've ever had. And so when we look at breathwork, it's a great prep. It's a great preparatory tool for people to sit still because it clears the energy in the body. So I think, yeah, it might be in, but it's just because this is the health world. You know, things come and go as far as focus. But as you and I both know, the middle way, there's tools that exist in the middle way that'll never go away. And breath and meditation are both one of those tools.
Absolutely. So I'm sure a lot of our listeners are familiar with meditation, but breathwork might be kind of a new concept. Can you define it for us?
Yeah. So the science, like meditation, breath work it's a skill. It's a skill you cultivate over time. But unlike meditation, breath work is an active form of clearing your mind, centering your body that's going to produce immediate feedback as you let go of the stress. So calming the monkey mind and really changing your state of wellness. So breath work is defined as the field of a wide variety of therapies that utilize breathing exercises to improve the physical, the mental, and our spiritual health. Breathwork is ultimately the art and science of consciously controlling respiration to support better management of stress, for optimizing our total body, our mind, and really, Hilda, emotional well-being. You know, that's what breathwork is a tool for.
This is fascinating because I've heard some people refer to it as mastering your breath, like controlling it, right? And because I've done some like Wim Hof cold water plunges in Minnesota and stuff, there's been a lot of breathwork prep that I've had to go through. Describe one of the breathing exercises, whether it's Wim Hof related or not, that you think might be good for beginners, Josh.
Honestly, the greatest thing that anyone can ever do as far as quote breath work is 6 diaphragmatic belly breaths. So the science is clear. Like when we pull in through our nose, we're actually we're actually acknowledging the fact that we have stress. So we're turning on the sympathetic. When we exhale through our mouth, we're turning on the parasympathetic. And I'm sure you've talked about this on the show, but if there was a needle in our nervous system, when we're stressed, that needle turns over to what's called the sympathetic nervous system. It's part of the autonomic or automatic nervous system. When the needle is tilted over to the parasympathetic in the automatic nervous system, that's rest and digest. That's us being calm, digesting our food, being in a state of relaxed, focused attention, however you want to describe it. But when you do these 60 breaths, it's impossible for you to not get a physiological change. And a belly breath is different than a chest breath because most people are breathing through their chest only. It's funny, most people don't even understand what a diaphragm breath is, what a diaphragmatic breath is.
But you know who does understand it? Singers, right?
That's right.
Because we are told to use our diaphragm to get our voices out. So we understand that deep belly breathing. But describe it further in depth. I think this is fascinating.
So a great way to think of this is if you were laying on the ground and you had a sandbag or a bottle of water on your belly, if you breathe in big and focused on raising the sandbag or raising the bottle up in the air, that is a belly breath inhale. That's actually when I help people in the beginning, I just help them do that. Because what happens is most people are walking around with a tight abdominal wall because of all these honestly uncomfortable clothes, uncomfortable posture positions, and uncomfortable fear of people seeing their bellies hang out or being perceived as fat. So we have this culture that always says, suck in your belly, suck in
Mhm.
your belly, make sure you're looking tight. And that subconsciously has transferred into people's consciousness where we have so many people that just don't know how to take a belly breath. So that is a diaphragmatic breath. The diaphragm is a musculature that is a dome-shaped musculature. It sits right below the lungs. It's what helps to inflate and deflate the lungs, but it's cued by our nervous system. And it's the only muscle, it's literally the only automatic or autonomic response that we have that we can take control over. So we can't beat our own heart faster. We can't digest our food faster. We can't increase our blood flow faster. Those things are done by divine intelligence. But what we can do, Hilda, is we can consciously control the lever on our breath. And that is what gives us this ability to change our state. So the very first thing that people can do is those 6 deep belly breaths. So inhale big through your nose, no pause, and then just let it go nice and soft. 6 of those is the best place to start. It's the best place for anybody to start.
And who did you learn that technique from?
I learned that technique actually 2017, Mark Divine at an event called Unbeatable Mind. And we did that. Then we did what's called warrior breathing, which is a more cathartic breathing. And I was like crying and I'm like, wait a minute, why is this breathing making me cry? And that's when I started to unlock this understanding of, oh, there's so much more to breathing than meets the ear or that meets the eye. There are things that happen in our body from a physiological perspective. When we take deep breaths, we allow the emotional system to clear from a physiological response. In other words, the issues are in the tissues, right? Like we have emotional trauma that's stored in our body. This is why some people don't like being touched, or some people, they get in a position, it reminds them of trauma they've had. That was the big one for me, was 2017. And it's been an understanding and an evolving since then.
I'm so glad you mentioned that about emotional release because I've heard that happens frequently, although I haven't witnessed it myself, that people have kind of a cathartic experience or some kind of a, very moving emotional experience when they do some of this deep breath work. You experienced it yourself, huh?
Yeah. I mean, and it was to the point where I was thinking, wait, I'm not crying, but why is there water coming out of my eyes? Like what's going on there? And so, especially for men, the stigma around showing any other emotion rather than aggression or control or dominance, that's something that we're getting over as a society. Like men are allowed to have more of an emotional bandwidth because it's actually a strength being vulnerable in your emotions is a strength, but it hasn't been looked like that for a long time. So I think as men, I'll just speak for men only.
Mhm.
I'm sure you could speak for women, but as men, we're all just kind of growing up now. We're growing up, we're meeting the demands of the modern woman, we're meeting the demands of the modern world, the stressors that we all go through. And I think breath is a tool. Really, what breath is it's a bridge to just be with what's right here, right now. And a lot of times when we're stressed out and we're thinking about the future or we're ruminating on the past, and we're not actually in a moment, the breath is the thing that can get us there, because we all know we've been thinking about the future and we realize, oh, I haven't taken a breath in like 3 minutes, because I've just been tripping on what's coming next.
Right, right. Yeah, I've noticed sometimes in moments of stress that I'll find I'm breathing shallowly. And as you said, most of us breathe shallowly most of the time. So I understand that learning to manage my breath and maybe using some of these techniques can lower my stress level,
Yeah.
help me to be more mindful and present, give me some emotional release. What are some other benefits of learning to master our breath?
So when you master it, it's really easy actually. But when you master it, you still have to apply it to life. So the challenge isn't learning the techniques. And to be honest, the techniques are very simple. There's the inhale, the hold, and the exhale. And yes, there's a lot of benefits that go along with that, like breath retention. For example, one of the benefits of breath retention is you increase nitric oxide. You also have what's called intermittent hypoxia. This is where we focus on holding the out breath to build up CO2 and deplete oxygen. This is where we rest the breathing process. It's also where we train the nervous system to be calm under pressure and to better manage stress. And when we do these breath retentions, this is what allows us to really feel somatically the stress that we're experiencing and that we may have been ignoring. So the breathing isn't really the hard part. It's remembering to breathe when life's stressors and life's triggers come up. In other words, when you're in a fight with your spouse or when you're at work and you're about to go on stage, can you remind yourself through practice, just like anything, can you remind yourself to use the tools that you've learned? And I think that's really the juice. That's really the most important thing.
I love it. So now, why don't we do a couple of these, Josh? Let's go ahead and do the belly breaths, if you could walk us through those. And then let's do the breath retention, unless you think I'll start crying and it'll mess up the podcast.
Well, honestly, I think let's just do the 6 because we all can benefit. Now,
Okay.
so wherever you are, just make sure that if you're standing, just slightly bend your knees. If you're seated, just take a big breath in right now through your nose and just let that go. So just take a big breath in. And just noticing your body where you're feeling tension. Just notice it. Are you feeling tension in your shoulders, your head, your knees, your hips? And just pay attention to whatever's going on in your body. Do you have a sore back? Take another breath. Now just place your right hand on your belly and your left hand on your chest. And when you breathe in this time, we're going to do 6 in a row, and it's going to be a circle. So close your eyes and draw a circle with your breath. So when you breathe in, you're going to notice that your hand pushes out and your belly fills with air. When you let it go, you're going to let it go effortlessly. So here's the cue. You're going to inhale through your nose. Let it go effortlessly. 5 more of those. And each time you breathe in, your hand goes outward. Last one, you're going to audibly exhale. And then just notice in your body how you feel more calm. There's this permission slip that doing 6 deep breaths with your belly going out can actually give you. And what I found is that when you breathe out with an audible exhale, like the sound, you're even cueing more of that signal from your parasympathetic, from your rest and digest. So wherever you are, whoever you are, whatever you're doing, if you can remind yourself to do that one clearing breath where you just set yourself up for the 6, then do 6 of those belly breaths, you can change your state. And when you change your state, you can choose anything else. There's a tattoo on my arm in Italian, and it says "Se posso respirare, posso scegliere." And what that means is, if I can breathe, I can choose. I can choose what's coming next. I can choose to respond from a place of love. I can be connected in a conversation. But if we're holding our breath, we can't do anything. We can't choose. So breath is a way that we can unlock the truth by us choosing it.
Wow, that is really, really powerful. And I think it's good to remember because sometimes we just have a knee-jerk reaction. We're like puppets that the world is moving around, whether it's, fear about some pandemic coming or
I know.
someone says a critical remark and suddenly we're reacting. If we take a moment to take a breath, we can act instead of react, right?
I like the way you said that. Yeah, I mean, that's really what we're talking about because what if you think about it, why do you believe, and whether you're spiritual or practical, it doesn't matter. Why do you believe that we even breathe in the first place? Like, what's the point of us breathing? It's because we're here on a rock in the middle of outer space that's lit up by an orb in the sky, and we're a spirit that inhabits a body, a physical meat suit. There, in other words, there's a lot of mystery out there, okay? We don't really have all the answers to all of our deep philosophical or even logical scientific questions. But what we can do is we can be present with what is. And the reality is that if we can breathe properly in our workouts, if we can breathe properly in our relationships, and if we can breathe when it comes to us experiencing internal or external stress, life is so much more fun. Life is so much
Mm.
more rich. It's so much more enjoyable. But if we're not training ourselves to breathe, then stress can start to stack up. It's cumulative. And there's actually some studies that are showing that breath work not only helps people with their anxiety, but breath work can help people during end of life and also during acute stress. So there's a wide spectrum of ways that breath work can support people. It's really just who are you and how are you breathing?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned studies because I think there might be some people who are like, oh my gosh, this is so woo woo. Not
Sure.
going to listen to this Josh guy, but there's real science that backs this up.
100%. I mean, if you look at some of the studies that are coming out of the major universities, Stanford, for instance, Dr. Nima Morajevi, who's been on the show, he created a physical stone electronic device, and it's a breathing cue. And so what he said was in his research, he would notice that in behavioral change, when they had their behavior change lab at Stanford, that when he would cue people through that device to take a breath when they were stressed, they could notice physiological changes, blood pressure lowering, heart rate lowering, not only the anecdotal with their focused attention, but when people are breathing and they're cued to breathe, that subtle reminder to breathe during a stressful moment, it affects health on the long term and the short term. So yes, it does increase nitric oxide. It also increases our positive feel-good hormones like dopamine and serotonin.
Coming up, Josh explains why we are more stressed than previous generations were. And he also explains a variety of breathing phases, and he shares stories of those who have benefited from them.
You're listening to the Wise Traditions podcast from the Weston A. Price Foundation. We pause now to recognize our sponsors.
Grassroots Farmers Cooperative. Now more than ever, we want to be intentional about the food we serve our family. Grassroots Farmers Cooperative makes it easy to do just that. They are a group of U.S.-based family-owned farms who have gotten together to help feed us well. Grassroots Farmers Cooperative meat is 100% pasture-raised, in keeping with regenerative agriculture practices. When you buy from them, you are supporting local farms. Each cut actually has a QR code, so you can see exactly where it came from. I love their transparency and the whole approach, so order from Grassroots Farmers Cooperative today to get high-quality, nutrient-rich meat delivered straight to your door. No subscription required. And right now, they are giving our listeners a special limited-time offer, $40 off plus free shipping. So just go to grassrootscoop.com/wise and order today. Again, that's grassrootscoop.com/wise for $40 off and free shipping. And Ancestral Supplements. Support your immune system with wholesome nose-to-tail nutrient-dense foods. Ancestral Supplements lung, thymus, and colostrum will provide your body with the vitamins and minerals it needs to stay healthy and fight off viruses. Why does thymus matter? To a very large extent, the health of the thymus determines the health of the immune system. Individuals who get frequent infections or suffer from chronic infections typically have impaired thymus activity. Add Ancestral Supplements Beef Lung to support your respiratory system and lung cells. Lung is a source of lung-specific building blocks, peptides, and enzymes, and lung tissue has historically been used by those with respiratory disorders, convalescent stages of pneumonia, colds, flu, and the like. And to complete this immunity powerhouse, add in Ancestral Supplements Colostrum. Colostrum supports optimal gut and immune system function, thymus health, and human growth and cell repair. I have recently added some of these supplements to my own dietary regimen. I love that they are real food and not synthetic in any way. So visit ancestralsupplements.com to try them out. Lung, thymus, and colostrum. Ancestral Supplements, putting back in what the modern world has left out. This is Holistic Hilda, and you're listening to Wise Traditions.
what's bigger than a trend? It's funny you started our podcast. You were like, hey, is breath work or meditation, like, which one's really hot, which one's really in? And I think that question is so perfect and also so hilarious because
Yes,
as human beings, Hilda, we're always looking for the next thing, and the
I
reality is the
know.
next thing is the thing that's already inside of us. We just got to have the intelligence to turn it on. Because the result we want is what? We just want peace. Everybody wants peace. I mean, just feel into that for a moment. Like, you don't have to be a super spiritual person to say, oh, yeah, peace is nice. I enjoy being at peace. So, no matter who you are, like, everybody is searching for peace. And what is peace? Peace is where we have confidence and where we have freedom. When we're confident and free, we have peace. When we're not confident and we're not free, we're living someone else's dream. We're eating toxic foods. We're holding our body hostage to our nutritional choices. We're not honoring this incredible vessel that we live in. Then, yeah, we're not going to have peace. So it's just we're constantly defending. I would say we're constantly defending and protecting the inner peace that we have, and we're also at the very same time we're also cultivating it, which is so fascinating to me because it wasn't like this for our great grandparents and even our great 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 grandparents. They had a totally different world. In other words, they didn't really have to stress about food because everything was organic. There was no such thing as unorganic food. But we have to be militant in the way that we take in foods now because we've realized that our food system has been completely harnessed for profit over people. And so, yes, why would we use breath work? Why would we do any of this stuff that's not just exercise and movement? It's because the world we live in is different than our great great grandparents. The world we live in requires more acute approaches that'll actually take away our stress and give us that peace.
Yeah, that's powerful. You're right. We all do want peace. And why do you think the younger generation, especially, is more anxious than any generation prior?
Well, I think it's a big experiment. There's always a paradox. There's always a duality in everything that we do. So right now we're talking through a computer, which goes to a satellite and then goes down to Washington, D.C.,
Hmm.
right? Like this is kind of a cool video game. But then at the same time, the very device that we use to connect, if we're not mindful, it can disconnect us more than ever before because what happens is we become slaves to these notifications. And I interviewed on someone on Wellness Force. His name was Nir Ayal, and he helped a lot of these big tech companies make their products addictive. And what he shared with me is that it's really the novel reward. When we click on our phone and we're looking at emails or social or notifications, every single time, Hilda, that we get a new message, we get a microscopic shoot of serotonin and dopamine every single time. And it's if we know, like everybody knows this is true. Have you ever been on Facebook and you go check Facebook and nobody's liked your stuff? You go on, there's no red circle, there's no notifications. It kind of feels like a little, oh, nobody likes my stuff, right? Well, that right there is an indication of the addiction that we're all dealing with because never in human history have we held a box in our hand connected to a satellite that's fed by people who make our attention currency. Our attention is currency. So the reason that we're all on these devices and phones is yes, they provide value, but they also take human interaction and human connection and rake it into a pile so it can be harvested for money. And that's the world we live in right now. So it's being conscious and aware of all things.
Yeah. And so breath work is a way to bring our attention back to our own place in the world. And perhaps so we can put all of that other stuff in perspective, right?
I loved how you brought that home because look, whether it's ancient history or it's modern science, the research and also the anecdotal evidence of breathwork is that it has a positive effect on mental and physical health. So in the Breathe program, we cover how to train the brain and body to access this power. That's really what we're doing. We're just training and accessing something that's already innate within us. And this is the coolest part too. Like once you understand the breathing protocols, you can do this anywhere, anytime for free. You
Hmm.
don't need to buy some big membership to a gym or anything else. You can train yourself to do this at your house, in your car, on vacation, no matter where you are. And I think that is the most powerful thing because we don't have to do anything for it other than just harness what's already there.
Josh, can you tell us a story, either from your own personal experience or from a client you worked with, of how the breath work benefited them?
I can share my own here, and I can also share a client, but I can't talk about the name. But let's just call him Janet.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go with Janet first. Well, when I was doing a training last year, there was a woman that did cathartic breathing, which is more of like a 30 to 50-minute rolling breath where you're just inhaling and exhaling through your mouth. I would not recommend people do this unless they're under the care of a skilled practitioner,
Mm.
because it requires somebody that can hold the proper space and know what to do if anything goes wrong. But what happened was is this woman had a memory that came up. So she was doing this cyclical breathing and she had a memory that came up when she was a mother, and she wanted to provide and do all these things for her son, but she wasn't able to. She wasn't able to do all the things for her son that she wanted to. And she just let go of this wave of guilt. And shame and guilt are the most treacherous emotions because they're so sticky.
Mhm.
And once people get wrapped up in shame or guilt, it's challenging to let go of with just the logical mind, because emotions really reside in the body. That's why they're emotions, energy, and motions. Feelings reside in the mind. So most people try to attack feeling by saying, I'm going to feel better. I'm going to make my life better. I'm going to have this perfect morning routine. But these emotions, the energy and motion can only be released in the conduit where they reside, which is the physical body. So when you do the breath work, and this woman specifically, she felt peace. She felt like tears and emotional release because she was able to let go of that guilt for not being the perfect mom, not being able to be there in all ways. And this is something where if somebody's listening and they are logical minded, they're probably not going to believe that. They're going to say, oh my God, is this guy telling the truth?
Mhm.
I have nothing to lose by telling the truth. I mean, I was there in person. I've experienced it myself too. So there's this ever shortening gap between science and spirituality. And the more that we understand the difference between emotions and feelings, the more we can start to use breath.
I've never heard anyone, Josh, make that distinction between emotions and feelings. That's fascinating.
Yeah. Think about it, like energy in motion. So
Yeah.
we're energetic beings, right? But feelings. In my systems, I create a diagram for people to understand. And it's called the BTFA loop: belief, thought, and feeling, action.
Mm.
If you look at what's going on for anyone, initially there's a belief, right? And so that belief can be changed, it's malleable. But if we have a belief that like life is hard, or people don't love me, or money causes pain, whatever it is,
Yeah.
then that's going to initiate, it's going to be a feedback loop for a thought. And that thought is, oh my God, people don't like me. I'm not sure what to do. Life isn't going to work. And then that creates a feeling. The feeling is the thing. The feeling is the thing that really takes people down to the dark path. And then, of course, the action is the result, right? Like we take the action, we eat the donut, we don't breathe, we
Mhm.
we do the thing that isn't of service for us. So that's the key distinction there, is just really this is a lifetime of work. So yeah, the energy and motion resides in the body. The feelings, they reside in the mind, because the feelings are there based off of what we're actually sensing in our body.
Wow, that's really profound. So now tell us your story, how you've experienced the power of breath work.
Yeah, so I'm laying there and it's about 30 minutes in, and I'm just like, why is there water coming out of my eyes? I'm like, what is this? And I was 2 years into this mission of Wellness Force, and just really understanding, like, first of all, how am I going to make money? How is this thing going to survive? And then secondly, how do I take care of myself and not crush my physical body and my physical emotional health while I'm chasing down my dream? And it was just this moment of surrender, like just this moment of surrender where I don't have to be in control all the time. Yes, I'm going to find myself wanting to be in control again. But for this moment, just for this little time, can I just release control and can I surrender right now? Because there's nothing else that's more healing and more cathartic than letting go. So if I can train myself to let go, specifically in those moments, and what it felt for me there, Hilda, I'll be honest, like it just felt like, oh, okay, there's nothing else I need to do right now.
Mm.
There's nothing else I need to do right now other than just be right here and just let go of this cumulative stress that's been building up. And I mean, it's funny, I can even sit here this morning and I'm playing a way bigger game than I played in 2017. And so the approach pattern towards the stress, it's changed, but the stress has increased, right? So good,
Mm.
like the bigger the dream, I feel like sometimes we experience more stress.
Mhm.
The bigger the dream we have, the more people we want to serve. I mean, this as a media and a content creator, like it takes energy,
Mhm.
energy and motion. so so I'm still, 39 years old with you right here in this moment. I'm still doing my work to use the power of breath and to just use the power of surrender to not have to be in such control. and just really to trust more that things are working out. Now, it doesn't mean I kick back on the couch and sip a latte. What it does mean is that I just slow down and take more conscious action.
I love it because I'm thinking right now, Josh, of singers, of tennis players, of ballet dancers, people who are in professions that require their whole body. And when they let go is when the song soars, or when that tennis ball just hits that sweet spot and flies over the net, or, that leap is perfectly placed, not because they're in control, but because they've trained to release into it, right? They've let go of their fear. They've learned to
Yes.
surrender. So it's such a paradox, right? We think we have to hold on to whatever follower we have or whatever engagement we've got. But when actually what we need to do is to let it go, and we'll actually perform better in all areas of our lives, I think.
The coolest thing, I was visualizing being on a boat in a storm when you just spoke right there.
Mm.
And I think we all can relate to, like, yeah, sometimes we don't want to surrender. We don't want to let go because we're in the middle of a storm. And let's be honest, like sometimes it's really beneficial that we do hold on.
Right.
But that's the key. Sometimes, not all the time. What happens is that from an amygdala perspective, from a fear center perspective in our brain, if we experience so much trauma or so much challenge in our life, that just becomes like a new default. And this is what I also cover in the Breathe program is the default mode network. We are beautiful beings, we are powerful, but we also have tools that are based on us living in tribes 200,000 years ago.
Hmm.
Like the paleo diet works and the ancestral way of living works for a reason
Hmm.
because that's how we were designed. But again, we're not in that world anymore. So the default mode network that we all have in our brain, this is a network that essentially it's a mental axis. Our brain defaults to it when we're not paying attention. And when we're not paying attention, we're not focused on the current moment. So this default mode network is literally a scanning device for danger. And if we're not careful, the default mode network can constantly think that we have to hold on.
Fascinating. And so what we have to do is kind of reprogram so that we know
Yeah.
when we need to hold on, those moments of the storm, like you said, and when we need to let go.
That's it. I mean, that is 100% it. So if you think of your memories from the subconscious, like papers being pulled from a file cabinet, and there's millions and millions of papers in it, if there's enough papers with traumatic stories or challenging beliefs, like we're not enough, we got to worry about money, then what the default mode does is it's going to inject and literally bring into the forefront a current moment that's not real. In other words, if our default mode network is always active in the background, regardless of how much peace the moment has or how much fun we could be having in a moment, the default mode network will inject its own story that says, watch out for danger, watch out for this person.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about because a friend of mine said to me one time that the way she heard it is that she needed to start framing things and verbalizing the story. In other words, let's say you don't call me back after I've texted you a few times and you don't even reply.
Right.
Then I can either say, "Hey Josh, what's up?" or I can at least verbalize to you the story I'm telling myself is that you don't want to connect with me, because that might not be the story at all. It might have been that you were traveling or your mom was sick and you never
Yeah.
even looked at your phone. But we need to verbalize and recognize, I guess I would say, that there are stories we're telling ourselves that are not serving us and have nothing to do with reality.
Yeah. God, that's so powerful because every single human being can relate to wanting something to work out and having it not work out. And this is the difference between expectation and flow. Like I don't necessarily think that having an expectation is a bad thing, but when you have an expectation and it causes your life to fall apart, then yeah, it becomes a controller. It becomes not from a good source. So the way that I could explain this is if somebody texts you back 2 days late or 3 days late, it's probably just because they were dealing with their own stuff. That's
Hmm.
9.999 times out of 10.
Hmm.
No one's ever doing anything malicious to cause you harm. They're
Hmm.
just dealing with their own stuff just like you. And the default mode network doesn't want to believe that because in the past, if we've been in a relationship that's hurt us, if we've had parents that weren't emotionally intelligent, or if life dealt us some cards that were pretty hard to play, we can get stuck in those loops where it's like we feel a certain way and we don't even know why we feel it. You know what I mean? I think we all can relate to that. Like, why do I even feel sad or why am I even upset? That's where breathwork comes in. That's where this default mode network, we can literally use breathwork to turn down the volume of this constant searching light for danger.
Wow. Well, so I am so fascinated by this topic, but I just have a couple of questions to ask you before we close up. You mentioned danger, and it makes me think, can these techniques, these breathing techniques or this breath work hurt us in any way? Can it in and of itself be bad for us?
Well, one thing I'm glad you asked this because I did want to just go over really briefly because it directly relates to your question. There is three phases of breath. There's daily meditation and wellness breathing, right, which is very safe. Everybody can do this. There's breath work for acute stress, like whether it's stage fright or anxiety or nervousness. Those are safe as well. Anybody can do those. But the third thing that requires a lot of safety and care is the phase 3 is really cathartic breathing. This is like the longer Wim Hof, the holotropic, the breath is prayer. I recommend that people check with their medical practitioner for these because these sessions can last 30, 60, even 90 minutes of very deep rhythmic breathing. So although very powerful in healing, these catharsis sessions are not suggested to do alone without a trained facilitator. This is why we refer out to trusted breathwork facilitators in our program, because the practitioner of yoga, think of it like this, you wouldn't want to go to a yoga class with somebody that wasn't certified because they could put you in positions that may harm you. It's the same thing with breathwork. You only want to do a journey breathing session with somebody that has been trained on how to facilitate those. And the key components of facilitation are technique, safety, and also a phrase that gets thrown around a lot, and I can share more about what this is, holding space, actually holding the space.
Oh yeah. Well, I do want you to go into that. So go ahead.
Really, when people say, I want to hold space or can you hold space? It just means, can I, let's say as a facilitator, can I be conscious and connected to my breathing and to my body while someone else is going through stress or going through a challenge? That's holding space. Can I stay calm in my own mind, in my own body, while I'm teaching or while I'm guiding? No matter if the person in front of me starts to shake or cry, or maybe they start yelling. These things happen as we've shared in breathwork. A lot of things can come out, and it's healing. It's powerful, but the person who's leading them has to be so trained and so grounded in their own physicality. Their breathing, their body sensation. This is why I did a 10-day Vipassana. This is why I've done meditation and float tanks and plant medicine, and I've done a lot of things to be able to hold, quote, the space. So that's the big deal, is like, you don't want to just go sit in someone's living room and do a holotropic breathing session for 90 minutes if you guys are just, quote, trying to do it. I mean, there could be somebody that has a moment of catharsis and the person doesn't know how to deal with it. And that's where having a skilled practitioner who can hold the space can actually be there and make it safe.
Yeah. Like if you started crying, I'd just start crying with you. I'm not, I'd be like, oh, this is horrible. And I wouldn't be helping at all because I haven't gone through all the things you have. No, I'm joking, but I get your point about having an experienced practitioner or, professional with you so that you can make sure you've got the right technique, like you said, the right positioning, and also that you're in a safe space with someone who can walk you through it all. So
exactly.
This has been amazing. We'll put links in the show notes to some of the resources you've mentioned, definitely to your website so people can check out the programs that you offer. And I want to ask you as I wrap up, Josh, if the listener could do one thing to improve their health, what would you recommend that they do?
One thing. Oh, that's a loaded question, isn't it?
It is.
Well, I mean, since we're talking about holding space, I would say get curious about how you can hold space for yourself. Just be curious about that. There's a lot of ways you can do that, but really, what am I saying? Get curious and start being more interested in how you can be more calm in your body, how you can be aware of what's going on in your body, about how you can feel what's actually happening for you. Because when you do that, all of your choices when it comes to food and movement and even breath work become easier. And I will say that breath work is a beautiful bridge to get people there.
Wonderful advice. Thank you so much, Josh. I've loved the conversation.
Thank you.
Our guest today was Josh Trent. Visit his website, wellnessforce.com. And he has a special gift for our listeners today, the M21 Wellness Guide with 6 science-based morning practices plus a 7-day guided breathwork challenge. The link is in the show notes. And I'm Hilda Labrada-Gore. You can find me at holistichilda.com. And for the complete show notes for this and every podcast episode, go to our website, westinaprice.org, and click on the podcast page. And that's it. Hey, but wait, last but not least, today's journal letter is from the Spring 2020 Journal. It's a letter from Lee in Vermont, and this is what she says. Running our small farm during the coronavirus is different than normal. The demand for raw milk, our main product, has skyrocketed. It's the end of winter, so we are not gardening yet. Sugaring is just finishing, and the lambs are not born yet. Our farm school and craft buildings are temporarily shut down, and so I find myself with free time to be creative. I've been cooking using as many highly nutritious groups of food and herbal tinctures as possible to share with my community here in the mountains of Vermont. I am following the Weston A. Price Foundation timeless principles of healthy traditional diets, focusing mainly on animal fats and seeing what I can produce. Sally shared on a podcast recently that eating good fat is one of the best things you can do to protect yourself from viruses. So here are a few things we are cooking to consume more fats. Raw milk, colostrum yogurt, coconut. Actually, I make popcorn for the crew every few days in coconut oil with lots of good mineral-rich salt. Broths and stews, butter, garlic honey, mushroom coffee, and herbal tinctures and liver pate. I hope it's inspiring. It really is, Lee. Thank you so much. And thank you to each of you for listening. Stay well, my friend, and see you next time.
On behalf of the Weston A. Price Foundation, thanks for listening. We have many free resources to support you on your health journey. Visit westonaprice.org to find podcasts, articles, videos, and more. You can also find a local chapter near you for help in finding sources of great food. We invite you to support the Foundation's mission of education, research, and activism by becoming a member. Thanks again, and take care. Wise Traditions is a project of the Weston A. Price Foundation for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. The content on this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended to substitute for the advice provided by your doctor or other healthcare professional. It is not intended to be, nor does it constitute healthcare or medical advice.